This week we're going to draw Daredevil. Daredevil was created in 1963 to be a companion book to the X-Men. Following the success of the Fantastic Four and Spider-Man, Stan wanted to follow that up with another team book, the X-Men, and another swashbuckling hero, hence Daredevil. The problem was, Bill Everett, the artist he chose to draw Daredevil, was very slow. So Stan came up with another idea. Let's take a bunch of heroes and villains we already have, mash them into a team book, have Jack Kirby draw it in like 2 weeks or a month because the man was insane. And so the Avengers were born and Daredevil was pushed to the side until Bill could get the work done, which just happened to be in 1964. And this makes Daredevil the last of the core group of Marvel superheroes. And the push to 1964, I think, made him a little less legitimate and not taken as seriously as books like the X-Men, the Avengers, Fantastic Four, and all those. I mean, Iron Man didn't get his own book till like 1968, 69. They didn't bring Captain America back to his own book till around the same time, but Daredevil was there in 1964, and for the longest time, you could get his first appearance and #1 for a steal. You could get those books for almost nothing. And I wish I kept one because I've gone through a few in my day. So in this drawing, you'll notice that I make a lot of changes. I move things. I change sizes of things. I change the arms a few more times. I move the legs. It's all finding what I was looking for through trial and error for the original idea that was in my head. So I just keep going, sketching out the things that I know and things that I know will change. The legs are going to move. The arms are going to move. Eventually I'll put a face on them. We'll get them all going. And that's the process, at least for me. Just a lot of trial and error and trying to get things where I want them, how I want them. And then when we're done, we move on to the inks. But for now, we just got to deal with the pencil and the hands. Like for this hand, we finally decided where it's going to go. I think I changed the size again. So now we got to decide the actual shape. So we put the bottom knuckles in, the form, and give it dimension. You know, it's just a box cut into 4 pieces, really. Nothing too fancy here. Fists are the easiest hands to draw, in my opinion, because they're just blocks, just different blocks and different shapes. And you know, you need to know a little bit about perspective. Well, you don't even really need to know about it. You just have to understand, you know, how things move in space, I guess, a little bit. So now we're on to the head. Give him a little angry scowl because nothing good ever happens for Daredevil. He's kind of like the Breaking Bad of comic characters. When things are going good, they crash right down on top of him. You'll also find I know a lot more useless information about Daredevil than I do about Spider-Man, because Daredevil is my favorite character growing up, and the Frank Miller runs were great, and obviously they set the tone for pretty much comics forward on. The dark, gritty superhero, the undertones, just everything. The artwork, the style. Frank Miller led to guys like Mike Golden, and then to Art Adams, and then to Todd McFarlane. His style wasn't the standard house style of the time, like the John Romita Sr. and Jack Kirby's and even George Perez's and people along those lines. So my favorite run on Daredevil was the John Romita Jr. and Niacent, I always said Niacent, but I know that's wrong run, where just weird things happened. Daredevil goes on a pilgrimage. He ends up in the woods with one of the Inhumans. I think it was Gorgon, the guy with the hooves, and his superpower is to like see weaknesses. And they run into Ultron in the middle of a forest, and Daredevil literally beats Ultron with a stick. Gorgon's telling him where to hit him, and he's just beating on Ultron with a stick until he's in pieces. They made a whole movie where the Avengers could barely take him down, and Daredevil and an Inhuman beat him with a stick. You don't get things like that in modern comics, I don't think. And then you also have Silver Surfer shows up. There's a part of a crossover with the Fall of the Mutants where Daredevil finally makes it back to New York City. He's a beaten, bloody mess, and the city's pretty much gone to hell. I mean, there's mailboxes eating children and buses eating old ladies, and Daredevil's just walking through the city dealing with one thing at a time and just punching out those mailboxes and fighting with the buses, and then he just ends up in a bar and has a well-deserved beer at the end of the day to just finally decompress and welcome himself home. It's good stuff. And then, of course, there's Frank Miller's run, started in Daredevil 158, where he was just the artist, this young and up-and-comer who was drawing Twilight Zone books and random things at the time, and finally got his big break at Marvel doing Daredevil. Daredevil wasn't doing too good. He was pretty much on the verge of cancellation all throughout the 70s, and finally the editor, I think it was Denny O'Neil, he said, all right, we'll give this kid a chance to write. We're going to cancel the book anyway. What's the worst that could happen? Well, the worst that could happen is he changed the course of comics. He brought that dark, gritty tone that started pretty much in the Batman Neil Adams run back with Denny O'Neil, but he brought it to a whole nother level. His first issue, Elektra shows up, his love interest from the past in college, and all that goes down, and he fights the Hulk in an alley and gets his butt kicked. It's interesting things. Bullseye becomes a force to be reckoned with. He just loses his mind and becomes the assassin that we know today, who just kill you as soon as look at you. And he went after Daredevil hard. He actually kills Elektra in, I think, issue 181. If you notice, 181 is an important number in comics. The first appearance of Wolverine is Hulk 181, first appearance of Poison Ivy is Batman 181, and the death of Elektra is Daredevil 181. So after that, of course, Matt loses his frickin' mind and goes after Bullseye with the intent of stopping him once and for all. And the ending, they end up on a telephone line doing a balancing act, and obviously Daredevil has a much better sense of balance than Bullseye, and pretty much just jumps up, bounces, and Bullseye falls, and Matt catches him, and there's a dilemma. Do I save him? Do I let him fall? And Matt goes with the latter and lets him slip out of his fingers and fall, and goes down and breaks his spine. Then an issue or two later, I don't remember, I haven't read them in a long time, Matt visits Bullseye in his hospital room and has a little talk with him and how he went too far, and they have a little game of Russian roulette to end out their rivalry in the Frank Miller time. It's one of the best reads out there. I would recommend buying the issues, getting the graphic novel, going on Marvel Unlimited, which I think I'm going to do and reread them. I haven't read them in years, so I'm a little hazy on the facts. So if I'm wrong about a couple things, feel free to correct me in the comments, because I sure I am. So right here you see me working on the head, and I have that issue where I usually get the head a little crooked on straight on views, and sometimes the eyes don't line up, and you only see that when you flip the head in reverse. Back in the day, I used to take the sketches onto a light box and flip them over or turn it upside down to solve this problem, but in the digital age you just flip it over, fix it, flip it back. Sometimes you'll leave it flip and you're done. It's very convenient. I had a teacher back in the day who said you should never have to flip your page. You should always have it flat and ink it straight. If you turn the page, you're wasting time, and time is money. I never got that lesson, so you'll see I flip the page a lot. But we all have our own way of doing things, and like I said, I don't draw nearly as much as I should, and that's part of the reason why we're here drawing this for YouTube, so that I can draw and you can follow along with me. Another Frank Miller first was Daredevil 183. It's Daredevil's first meeting with the Punisher. So for you collectors out there, that's the issue you want. I don't remember what happened in that book because I haven't read it in at least a decade, but the one I do remember was a crossover between Daredevil and the Punisher, and Punisher War Journal and Daredevil was the John Romita Jr. run again, I don't remember, and the Punisher War Journal at the time was being drawn by Walt Portacio. Excellent artwork, beautiful. Both books look great, and the story is fantastic. It deals with the serial killer who's poisoning aspirin, which was very topical at the time. So he was going into drugstores and putting poison aspirin on the counters, and people would take them and they would die. And so Daredevil and the Punisher are both looking for the same guy. The Punisher finds him first and is beating the hell out of him on a rooftop. If you watch the Daredevil Netflix, the whole rooftop scene with the Punisher and Daredevil and that's pretty much taken from those issues. The difference is the writers back then understood that the Punisher couldn't hold a candle to a character like Daredevil or Wolverine or any metahuman, and he gets his butt kicked by Daredevil. He just beats the hell out of him and tells him if they ever meet in a situation like this again, that the Punisher won't be so lucky and basically stay the hell out of Hell's Kitchen. Yeah, like a few years later, Wolverine and the Punisher meet for the first time in Punisher War Journal. That's drawn by Jim Lee. Excellent art. And they take the opposite approach where Wolverine's looking for poachers and he confuses the Punisher with the poachers, and the Punisher confuses Wolverine with the poachers, and they fight, and somehow just hitting Wolverine with the butt of his gun is enough to take him down, and it's just awful as far as that goes. Punisher shouldn't last 5 minutes on that. Sorry that I'm ragging on the Punisher. He's never one of my favorite characters, but I understand why people like him. I mean, he has some good stories, and his origin is tragic. But he was never my cup of tea. So anyway, back to the drawing. Now we're working on little details. We're putting Daredevil's belt. We're defining his musculature. Some of these muscles, I don't know what they're called, and I usually just kind of make it up from what I've seen in the past, and hope I'm putting them in the right place. Going back to people like Todd McFarlane, where they just sort of do the same thing. Works for them, so why not? You do need to have a basic knowledge of the bigger muscle groups and where they go. Like, you got to know where the abdomen is, and the pecs, and the biceps, and the triceps, and the quads. But those are all the big muscles. If you know where they are, the little ones just kind of fall into place. So here we are adding in the billy club, kind of like the webbing, you know. You put a nice swirl behind them. Makes the drawing look like it has a lot more motion than it actually does. Although you don't get to put in all the cool little details like the spaghetti webbing. But it's still cool. And if you want to see good examples of that, Joe Quesada's run with Kevin Smith is beautifully drawn, and the artwork is immaculate, and he does a lot of the drama with the throwing of the billy club and the rope behind him and the swinging off the buildings and the sitting on church steeples. There's a lot of great iconography in that, and he fights unconventional villains. He actually, the main villain of that is Mysterio, and you think he would just walk up and see through the illusions and punch him in the face, and that's not really how it works, and they do a great job of showing all that. It's called Guardian Devil, I believe, where some woman leaves a baby on his doorstep, and Matt has to find out what's going on, and Karen Page shows up again, and tragedy ensues with Bullseye, because of course Bullseye has to be part of the story, because Bullseye and Matt, they're the yin and yang, and this one changes Matt's life forever as far as his relationship with Karen Page goes. It's like a 30-year-old story, but I won't ruin it for you with spoilers. You should read it. So the drawing, it's coming together. We got the definition in, we got the hands worked out, the sizes worked out. We're putting in the costume now and figuring out where everything's going to go, getting ready for inks on this one. Unlike the Spider-Man, I do a bit more work in the pencils and definition in the pencils. I try a few different things with the shorts we don't like, and then we come back and we just go with the standard superhero tights like Superman, Batman wear. Daredevil, they don't look as silly because they're the same color. I'm also an advocate for the superheroes in tights because that's, again, what I grew up with, so it's what I'm used to. I don't think Batman looks right if he doesn't have his underoos on. I don't think Superman looks right without the underoos. It's too much blue. The red breaks up the blue. I like what they're doing with the James Gunn movie where they're a little longer and more like biking shorts. So that's my opinion on the whole thing. You don't have to agree with me. If you don't want to draw the shorts on them, you don't have to. I also like when they swap out Daredevil when parts of the costume are black, but I'm going with the standard red on this one. There's enough black in with the inking and the way I chose to do the lighting down the center of the body. I almost went with the original yellow and black and red costume, but I didn't think it would be as recognizable, and I want people to click on it through the thumbnail, and the last time I drew Daredevil, I did the red and the yellow, so today we're going traditional. Yeah, this is pretty much your standard superhero front-on poster pose. There's nothing too fancy about it. The motion comes from the environment, the rope on his billy club, the black, the expression on his face, the lighting. You'll see what I put in the background later. So we're finishing up the pencils now, which I'm putting a lot more work in than I normally would. I'm filling this in black, which normally I wouldn't do on a pencil. I would just throw a couple X's on it and hope I remember which parts to color. So this is mostly for the benefit of the viewing audience. So hopefully this helps you guys out. And if you're going to use an inker and not ink it yourself, you might want to take a little more time and make this a little neater so the inker has an easier time following your lines. Most inkers actually do just as much work as the pencilers as far as line weight and definition, bringing things to life. But you also want to make their job as easy as possible, because time is money in the business, unfortunately. And when you're making a living off drawing art, the more you get done, the more you get paid. Another fun Daredevil fact has to do with his origin. He's coming home from wherever he was. There's an old man crossing the street. There's a truck careening towards the old man. Matt jumps into action. He runs. He throws the old man out of the way. The truck swerves. A vat of chemicals fly off the back, hit Matt in the eye, blinding him, and the chemicals fall into the local sewer. Just so happens in the local sewer, there's 4 little turtles that somebody just happened to flush away, and those turtles are exposed to the ooze and are mutated into the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. That's canon in the Turtles books. You can look it up. I'm not losing my mind. That's how it happened. So back to the drawing. Now we're putting in definition in the arms and the fingers and everything else to help us figure out what we're going to do when we ink it, so that we get a nice clean set of inks. You'll also notice when I ink this, I should probably wait till the inking section to tell you this, but I use more line work, not a lot, but more than I normally do and more than I use in the Spider-Man drawing, that's for sure. I use a lot of little dashes and check marks to define things and show curvatures and stuff like that. So that's another reason why I'm putting more energy into the pencils, so that I know where to put these things later on when we get to that part. And we're drawing to the end of the penciling part of this video. We're just going to fill in some more black on the legs and leaving a few white triangles to show where the muscle separation is. And then we just fill in a few more blacks and we give everything a once over, make sure everything's where we want it, to make sure we're ready for the inking stage, because this one has a little more to it than the other, and I think we're happy with what we got. So that ends the penciling part of this, and next we'll get on to the inks.